Where are the beads?
They're offering to the deities right now.
Oh, okay.
So I get that in after the last one. None. Is it for the whole family or what?
Yeah.
This is going to be.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to ISKCON Philadelphia. Actually, also would like to thank His Holiness Birkrishna Das Goswami Maharaj. Give a big round of applause to Maharaj. And also would like to welcome His Grace Balabhadra Prabhu. He's our dear most temple president here. And also would like to thank His Grace Vishnu Dada Prabhu. So also would like to welcome Mother Sangeeta Mataji and her husband Bamandev. So this evening, it's a big honor to have His Holiness Birkrishna Maharaj here in this temple, and he's agreed to come here to give the first initiation, or you can tell Harinam initiation, to all of you know. He was raised here in this temple, Arpan. So give a big round of applause to Arpan for saying this. So, and then also this evening, Maharaj is going to speak a little bit about the importance of initiation, the 10 offenses, and then we'll have the actual initiation, and at 6:30 we'll be having Gaura Arati, 7 o'clock Prashadam. Again, thank you very much for coming. Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
No, first he does the initial purification, then we speak.
So when we do the Sankalpa,
So I think the whole family has to sit. Shukadeva.
whole family? Balabhadra. Balabhadra said, yeah.
Prabhupada, yourself, Subhadra Gopi.
Dronacharya here. So we're going to do a purification first. Okay. So you'll repeat, everybody can repeat when we chant the mantras for purification. First we're going to do Achana. We'll do Achana. You have the Achana? Where's the Achana? Let's do it. Okay. So we take 3 drops in your right hand. Om. Keshavaya. Namaha. You sit over here. 3 more drops. Om. Narayanaya. Narayanaya. Namaha. 3 more drops there. Om. Madhavaya Namaha. You gotta be purified. Om Govindaya Namaha. Silent, behind it. Now, Om Apavitra Pavitrova Sarvavastam Kritopiva Yasmare Pundarikaksha Sabhayo Abhyantara Shuchi Shri Vishnu
All right, ready? Just go online. Oops. All right, we are online. No, after the lecture. After the lecture. Jeff Cartel, is something that'll help hold this thing in place? Otherwise it will slip out. Improvised support for the. All right, so Om Gana Timirandasya Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shikarabe Namaha. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. It's fine. My spiritual master is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So today we are celebrating Vaishnava Diksha, actually first initiation, which is known as the Harinam initiation. And I think most of you will notice that the individual, our friend who's taking initiation, is quite young. So I think this is the youngest person I've ever given an initiation to. So why have we agreed to give initiation to someone so young? Because someone questioned me before. How can you be sure that our friend will continue to comply with the vows that are part of initiation? Of course, the vows that are part of initiation are as follows. There's 4 regulative principles: no meat, fish, or eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling, which, of course, our friend doesn't even know what those things mean. He's so innocent. I mean, sometimes when I'm giving initiation to a lady who's very old, like 85, who's never broken the principles for her whole life, I don't even mention the principles, because it would be an insult. You have an 85-year-old lady and say, no illicit sex. She doesn't even know what it is. So, anyway, so there's the 4 regulative principles, and then also chanting 16 rounds every day, which takes some determination to continue throughout one's whole life. I mean, even we've seen devotees or people taking initiation when they're 20, 30, or even 35 or 40, and they have some initial enthusiasm. And of course, that initial enthusiasm is easy for anyone to have. But then, in the long run, they stop chanting, or their sadhana falls down, and it's a process of gradually reducing their devotional service, and ultimately, the 3 modes of material nature take over. As Krishna says in the Gita, Karnam Guna Sangasha Sadasad Janma Jonishi. That the reason we're entangled in this material world is because of association with the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And as long as we're following the principles and chanting strictly with good sadhana, and avoiding certain things like eating food cooked by non-devotees, it's not only the four regulative principles, it's avoiding certain things like, Bollywood movies, things like that. I hate to offend any of you. Because these things have the modes of nature built in. I'll give you a practical example of my own life. I was flying, somewhere. I was on an airplane. So many airplanes, I don't even remember where I was flying to. So I was flying somewhere, and they had some movie playing. And then I just look at the movie for a second. I didn't think I was going to watch the whole movie. Anyway, so we looked at it for a few minutes. It was some stupid movie, as most of them are. It was about an Ant-Man. And I watched it, and then I just felt all dirty just from watching for a few minutes this movie. And it just, I felt separated from Krishna just from doing that for a few minutes. So that's the modes of nature. And I just felt, well, I have to take a bath. And of course, afterwards, Atmasnapanam, as described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I started chanting very enthusiastically, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, what happened with the nectar? What happened with the happiness? So the modes of nature, so one has to be careful, not only the four regular principles, chanting 16 rounds, but careful, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stated, when he was asked about the quality of a Vaishnava, he said, a satsanga chag, a Vaishnava char. The char means behavior. You have prachar and achar. Achar means behavior, prachar means how you speak. So he said, a Vaishnava is one who avoids bad association. It's just like asking, what is it, the quality of someone who is clean? Well, someone who is clean doesn't go rolling in the mud either. That's a negative definition, yes. But with everything, there's pravriti and nivriti. Pravriti means the things you do and things you don't do. So you have to be very careful in this world. So here is a young person who has his whole life ahead of you. Myself, my whole life is behind me. Now, hopefully there's something ahead. I'm praying there's something a little ahead. But anyway, most of my years obviously are behind me. I don't think I'm going to live to 140. I'm 70 now, so I don't think 140 will do. So, but he has his whole life, and who knows what's going to happen in his life. He's going to go to the university, he's going to meet people, he's going to do that. Who knows? I can't predict. So why have I agreed? The question is, why have I agreed to give him initiation? Well, because he's not by himself. As they say, it takes a whole village to raise a child. So in this particular case, which is unique also with many of the people I've given to initiation to, he has a support system. You have, of course, his mother and his father, who are very good devotees, who I've known for how many years now? God, it seems like forever. So, like Shukada Prabhu and his wife, they've been working with me in different places before they came to Philadelphia. They were in New Orleans or here or there, and Cincinnati too, right? Cleveland, sorry. For me, it's the same. Cincinnati, Cleveland. I've only been there once in my life. So I've known them for many, many years. Must be like 30 years or something like that. And of course, that also means I know Darshan and Arpan since they've been born or before they've been born. So I know that they have a support system, and above all, they have Uncle Balabhadra, who has been with the family, and he's very close with the children. So on that basis, I'm willing to give initiation and take a risk, because initiating someone means that the guru is taking a risk. Now, I'm not talking about karma, because generally after initiation we do have some dreams, Godzilla, and some other creatures that appear in our dreams. But that's not really my concern. My concern is that when we give initiation, we're in front of Prabhupada, His Divine Grace A.Z. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And we're actually saying to Prabhupada, you know, here is someone who can formally, not formally, formally join your family. And we're saying that to Krishna, we're saying that to the deities. And so when you go in front of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada and you say something, you're responsible for it. So there's a moral responsibility. Like I said, it's not the karmic reaction that, you know, really bothers me that much. It's the moral response, the ethical responsibility of going before Krishna and the deities and Srila Prabhupada, especially Srila Prabhupada, because our whole lives are dedicated to serving Srila Prabhupada. And in one sense, we're acting on his behalf. Now, we're not propagating the Rit philosophy, but we're doing it for Srila Prabhupada. That's the position of a disciple. The position of a disciple is that he always remains the humble servant of his spiritual master. Of course, that's also mentioned as a quality of a spiritual master. Samedhani Shrochiyam Brahmanishtam. The spiritual master must be a humble servant, fetching firewood and water for his spiritual master. Shrotriyam must have heard nicely from the spiritual master, and ultimately Brahmanishtam, not be deviating from the spiritual master. So that's a quality of the spiritual master, how we can ascertain. So my whole life, and the life of all of the devotees in this kind is dedicated to serving Prabhupada. We are not independently accepting disciples, nor is any spiritual master in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya independently accepting disciples. We're accepting disciples on behalf of the Acharya, on behalf of the disciple succession. So on this basis, it's a very serious thing. You know, accepting something on your own behalf, that's serious. But accepting something on behalf of God and his representative, that is super serious. And you better be careful about that. Anyway, talking about the principles and the chanting, as we mentioned, the four regular principles. Why do we have the four regular principles? Let me explain that for a second. We have the four regulated principles for two basic reasons. One is that if you don't follow four regulated principles, you'll be performing what's called bikarmic activities. And you're going to be getting a reaction. The reactions for doing sinful things are mentioned to a certain extent in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, if someone is a Brahmin or in a Brahmin family, which is this family here, and they end up drinking liquor, guess what? They have to drink red hot or white hot molten metal. So that's a heavy punishment. Or if they get a little too romantic, then they have to embrace, in the hells of Yamaraj, they have to embrace a red hot or white hot form of the opposite sex. So these are heavy. Hare Krishna. Good to see you. So these are heavy reactions. So that's one reason for following the regulated principles. But another reason is that when you don't follow regulated principles, you go into the modes of nature, as we mentioned before. And when you go into the modes of nature, you will never be able to appreciate, what are you thinking? I don't know. You'll never be able to appreciate Krishna consciousness, or you won't have a higher taste, and you won't be able to continue serving Krishna. Because, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nivritta Shara Upagimana, Devoshara Shrotra Mano Vidama, Kalutama Shloka Gunanugada. Puman Vidajeta Vinal Pashitna. That if one is a killer of the soul, or killer of animals, or in any way performing sinful activities, that activity will keep you from understanding, appreciating and performing devotional service. Actually, Prabhupada would sometimes say, if someone's eating meat, they'll never understand God. So that's what that verse. It's the 10th canto, 1st chapter, text 4, if you're interested in that verse. Very important verses. Perhaps I consider it the nutshell verse of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, the 4 regular principles must be followed strictly. In order to follow them strictly, one has to be careful of not contemplating anything that would make one attracted to breaking the 4 regular principles. Just like you have that story in the Bhagavatam of Ajamil. Ajamil was born in a very nice Brahmin family, had a nice Brahmin wife, had a nice spiritual master, but he started contemplating a Shudra and a prostitute embracing. And we know from the Bhagavad Gita, what is that? Jayata Vishapunsa Sangustesha Vijayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Kama Krodha Vijayate. So just by contemplating sense, so one has to be very careful in this world. Like Prabhupada will often say, the devotional service is like a razor's edge. One has to be very careful in dealing with it. You can start contemplating the wrong thing, and you'll be off the cliff before you know it. That's why Lord Chaitanya says, Satsanga Vaishnava Chara. So, that's very important, to be very careful. Wow. The neighbors are restless. Sounds like it. And, all right, so that's the 4 regulative principles. And as far as the chanting of the 16 rounds, the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. We also have things to be avoided and things to do. Of course, also one should, just to backtrack a little bit, we were talking about avoiding bad association, but one should seek good association. You know, sadhu sangha, sarvasrashta koi, lava mantra, sadhu sangha, sarvasrashta koi. Okay, so as far as the chanting of Hare Krishna, there's positive and negative injunctions. And the negative injunctions are the 10 offenses to be avoided. Now, I usually like to explain the 10 offenses in a positive way, but that's not. So, first offense in a negative way is one should not blaspheme those devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. That's negative. So let's do the positive instead, because as I often say, you can't do a don't. It's very hard to do a don't. I'll give you a practical example. Like, here's something that has nothing to do with initiation. Let's say if I tell all of you not to think of something, I'm going to do a little experiment here. Now, everybody, usually their favorite food, even in India, is pizza, right? So if I tell you, don't think of pizza, that's an order to all of you. Don't think of pizza with nice cheese on it, with tomato sauce on it, or tomato sauce, and everything. Who is able not to think? It's very difficult. So, all right. So it's better to say something positive, you know, higher taste, rasa varjam, rasa pyasa, paramdrishtani vartate. So it's better to say something positive. So let's talk about the 10 offenses. All right, we said, don't offend devotees, don't blaspheme devotees who dedicated their lives, etc. So the positive thing is serve the devotees. Praise the devotees. Because what's the opposite of offending? Praising. Because simply, if you're just neutral, that's almost like an offense too. If a great Vaishnava walks in and you just ignore them, I'm not going to offend you. Then that's offensive. Neutrality is offensive. If you don't deal with it by, you know, a great Vaishnava walks in, even it's mentioned sometimes that if you're doing deity worship, if a great Vaishnava walks in, you stop the deity worship, there's no one else there to receive the Vaishnava. So serve the Vaishnava, take every available opportunity. And we're not only talking about Prabhupada and your guru and, you know, advanced devotees, but serve every Vaishnava. In fact, even if you do have a so-called high position in the Krishna consciousness movement, you should be thinking of serving everybody. Like when Prabhupada came to the Western world, he was cooking for everybody. There's one young boy, I think he was eating over 20 chapatis a day. And Stanley or something like that was his name. And Prabhupada kept feeding him more and more. And Prabhupada was cleaning up afterwards. And Prabhupada had to stand on line waiting for the bathroom in 22nd Avenue. All the devotees were lined up. And Prabhupada was just serving people. And so that's the point. We're servants. That's why when we get initiated, we have the name Das. You know, Das. Whatever. Das Brahmachari, Das Adhikari, Das Goswami, whatever. Because we're servants. So we see a Vaishnava, take the opportunity to serve. Take a Vaishnava's remnants. Just like that devotee in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime. Kalidas, I think it was Kalidas, yeah, who would take the remnants of all the Vaishnavas in Navadvip, right? He would go around and he would give Vaishnavas fruit or some food or something like that, even if someone was born in a shooter family like that, Jadhav Thakur. Then what did he do? He actually gave them food, waited outside until they threw the remnants out on the pile, and then he would suck on the mango seeds or the skin or something like that. It's described he ate the remnants of everybody in Navadvip, all the Vaishnavas. Wow. And because of that, you know what benediction he got? He got to drink Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's foot bathing water, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never let anyone else do. He let him do it once. When Lord Chaitanya was entering into the Jagannath temple, he bathed his feet and he put his hands underneath and dipped. That's pretty nice. There was another devotee who tried it and Lord Chaitanya kicked him out of the Gundicha temple, but that's another story. So, isn't it so powerful? Serving a Mahatseva Mahurvi Guptes, Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. You serve a Vaishnava, it's so powerful. You get pure devotional service just from serving a Vaishnava. So anyway, that's the first of them. We got to go through all 10. Don't want to be here all night. Okay, and the second offense is consider the names of the Demas like Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Brahma, whoever you want. There's 33 million of them. There's quite a few. You can do the 33 million Nama. Whatever that is in Sanskrit. So consider them to be equal to or independent of the holy name of Lord Vishnu. Of course, on the other end, the positive is we understand Ekala Ishra Krishna. There's one Supreme Personality, Devana. So we worship Krishna and we don't worry about what all the devas are going to do. Just like when Krishna advised the residents of Braj, just worship Govardhan, which is not different from Krishna. Don't worry about that guy, Indra. We'll take care of him. So if you worship Krishna and you chant Krishna's name, demigods will have to be happy about the whole thing. I know some of you may be attached to demigods. All right, if you're really attached to them, put them on a lower level and give them the remnants of the deities of Krishna, or Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or Jagannath Baladev. It's like they do in Bhubaneswar, right? In Bhubaneswar, they take the remnants of Lord Jagannath and they transport them to Lord Shiva's temple, right? Every day, put in a taxi, right? Who pays the taxi? Lord Jagannath. So anyway, that's the positive of that offense. And the third offense is disobey the order of the spiritual master. Obviously, the positive is obey, but not blind following. And, ultimately, we obey the order of the spiritual master in serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. This is a very important point, because Prabhupada ultimately is everybody's ultimate primary Siksha Guru. And everything is based on serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. When one takes initiation within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he's taking it as a servant of Prabhupada. His adhikar, his right, is to serve Krishna inside Srila Prabhupada's mission. not outside Srila Prabhupada's mission. That's part of the deal. And I certainly don't want any of my disciples serving outside of Prabhupada's mission. Because Prabhupada said, if anybody in the mission leaves the mission and thinks he's becoming Krishna conscious outside of the mission, he's living an hallucination. So don't live in hallucination. I mean, it's not like taking drugs. You see things that don't exist, and you don't see things that do exist. That's an hallucination. Or you see things that do exist in a different way than they look. And you think you're becoming Krishna conscious. Just like we see, I spent some time in Govardhan, I see so many ex-ISKCON devotees who go to Radhakund and think they're becoming Krishna conscious. Think they've understood what their Siddha Deha is, like the eternal spiritual body. Think they understand what their Akadasi Bhava, their 11 aspects of their spiritual personality are. And if they're not pleasing Prabhupada, they won't understand anything. Nagati Katobi, that's what we chant every day. In our Guru Vashtaka. Yasha Prasada Bhagavad Prasada, Yasha Prasada Nam. Gati Katobi. If you please Prabhupada, and any of my disciples would say, please Prabhupada, I'm happy. Even if they kick me in the head, I don't care. It doesn't matter. They can kick me in the head, cause me anxiety, but if they're pleasing Prabhupada, that's perfection. That's all I want. To please Prabhupada and to help push forward Prabhupada's mission. Everybody understands that. So next offense is the blasphemy of Vedic literatures. The positive thing, or literature's pursuance of the Vedic version, is that we glorify, not only glorify, but we should distribute it. If anyone's heard of book distribution, book distribution, whenever you get a chance, give people Srila Prabhupada's books. Try to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. And extol the glories. And don't criticize any literatures of any religion outside of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Any literatures that glorify God, then just, Krishna says we should encourage people to work in a spirit of devotion. Don't try to discourage or push people. So the next one is to consider the glories of the Hare Krishna mantra to be imagination. They're not imagination. Krishna, Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Punashakti Nichabuddho Vinatwam Namanamito. Krishna is non-different from his name. Krishna is there. And the next one is to give some perverted interpretation on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna or on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So there's a good interpretation which the Acharyas give about the meaning of the word Krishna, which is very interesting. I've been studying this recently. It's spoken by the Acharyas. You have Krishna. Krishna means to attract. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, you have the description of a Vaishya, Krishna Goraksha Vanijan, Vaishya Karma Svabhavajan. A Vaishya is called a Krishna in the terms of or in relationship to a Vaishya is pulling a plow with an oxen, not with a tractor, but even in America we call a tractor. Attract, tractor, you got it? Similar. So a Vaishya is pulling the plow, and that's attracting the plow. It's not pushing the plow. So Krishna means attractive. And Na is short for Ananda, bliss. So by chanting the name Krishna, then you'll be very immersed in bliss. And the Acharyas pray, like Rupa Goswami prays, for millions, unlimited tongues and ears to hear the holy names. And if you're not feeling attracted when you're chanting, if you don't want to chant more and more and more, your heart is certainly steel-framed. You're doing something wrong. You're not serving the Vaishnavas. Serve the Vaishnava, you get attraction. It's amazing how much attraction you get for the holy name. You won't want to stop. The next offense is to commit sins on the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. And positive, don't sin. Oh, that's also a negative today. Serve Krishna the strength of chanting Hare Krishna. When you're chanting, pray to Krishna for spiritual strength. And we're going to go over that in a second, how to pray. And so the next offense is to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna to be one of the auspicious ritualistic activities mentioned in the Vedic literatures as karma kanda. Karma kanda means things for material elevation. It also means, some external things that we do in the Krishna conscious movement. For example, we are wearing dhotis, which is fine, no problem. I like dhotis. I'm not following Krishna West activities, but I like dhotis, and I like Asika. But all these things, all these different attributes, physical attributes, external attributes, cannot be equated or should not be equated to chanting Hare Krishna. There's no comparison. Chanting Hare Krishna, you chant once and there's no comparison with millions and millions of ashramaic sacrifices or any Vedic ritual other than chanting the Lord's holy names. So remember that. We're called the Hare Krishna movement because if we chant Hare Krishna, we're meant to move forward and take over the world. As mentioned in the Bhagavatam, that this movement is meant, or the Bhagavatam specifically, but the movement is meant to create a revolution in the misdirected lives of an impious civilization. Hopefully I don't go too long, sorry about that. Anyway, so, I told you I'd talk longer than half an hour. Anyway, and then, so the ninth offense is, let's see. I know what the ninth offense is. To preach the glories of the Lord to those who are faithless. Okay, so that's a negative. And the positive is to actually adjust what we say to people so they will be attracted to Krishna consciousness. In other words, understand who we're talking to, what they can take, and give them that amount. Like if all someone can take is a sweet ball, give them a sweet ball. And if all people can take is just the chanting, just give them chanting. But don't preach more than someone is able to understand. I remember the first time I walked into a Hare Krishna temple, 1968. They gave me more than I could understand. In fact, they told me I wasn't able to understand. I picked up an Upanishad, I wanted to read it, and they told me, you're not advanced enough to read this book. And they started preaching to me, telling me Kali Yuga was coming and I was going to be as short as a dwarf and live underground and eat human flesh. And I said, get me out of here! So it took me a little while to get back to a Hare Krishna temple. Actually, it took meeting Prabhupada to get back. Otherwise, I was like, woo, these people. I thought born-again Christians were something, but these born-again Krishnas are even heavier. So, anyway, and the 10th offense is to not have complete faith in the chanting of Hare Krishna, maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. So the positive is to have faith. How do you get faith? You associate with those who have faith. By performing devotional service in the association of devotees, you get more faith because you get a taste, you get realization. So, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that surrounding all these 10 offenses is inattentive chanting. So that's, sometimes it's mentioned as the 11th offense, but actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur said it's sort of like the all-encompassing offense, because if you're attentive, you're not going to do any of the other ones. Simple as that. Very, very simple. Okay, so that's the 10 offenses, got that out of the way. So as far as positively, what mood to chant in, my recommendation is that you study very carefully Lord Chaitanya's teachings, the Shikshashtaka. The Shikshashtaka verses have been analyzed by Acharya Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as referring to different stages in devotional service. Not only that, referring to different times in Krishna's day. I mean, it's a very complicated analysis they've given. But in any case, these no musical interludes in the middle of the initiation. These verses give us something or a way to meditate when we do our sankalpa before a chanting. Just like before doing a fire sacrifice, there's a sankalpa. Sankalpa means, what are you going to do? Where are you? Like, if you do a fire sacrifice, you say, this is the so-and-so day of the moon, and so-and-so month, so-and-so year, etc. And we are performing an initiation, or doing a marriage, or doing a whatever, installing deities. So, before chanting, think about, why are you chanting? You know, too often, we chant because we have to. And of course, Rupa Goswami describes that as yam agraha. Following the rules and regulations, but just not doing it for Krishna conscious purpose. You just do it on automatic. You're an automatic pilot. Once upon a time, there were two pilots that put the plane on automatic pilot. They flew by the airport 200 miles past the airport that they were supposed to land on because they were talking about football or something like that. And the Air Force sent up some jets to shoot them down, the commercial plane. They noticed the jets and they said, uh-oh, turned around, landed the plane, eventually came back, landed the plane, but they lost their jobs. So oftentimes we put ourselves on automatic pilot. So there should be a sankalpa. Why am I chanting? What's the reason? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives us reason. Prabhupada was very fond of saying that we should chant like a child crying out for his mother. That's Ainanda Tanuja Kingam Patikam Vishame Babambudo Kripiya Tapapadapanta Jasta Stita Shuli Satra Sampachitaya. O son of Nanda Maharaj, I am your eternal servant, but somehow or other I've fallen in this horrible ocean of birth and death. Please fix me up as one of the atoms or specks at your lotus feet. That's a powerful prayer. And if you don't think this material world is miserable, read the news. Just read about, I don't want to mention his name. His name cannot be mentioned. So, just, oh my God, it's so miserable. I mean, you may not be experiencing misery now. It's like if you go on a roller coaster. I mean, sometimes you're on your way up. When I was young, I went on a roller coaster one time, that was it. Because when it went down, I was praying to Krishna, get me the heck out of here. So that's the material world. Now you're young, our friend is young, so I've got my whole life ahead of me, this is cool. But then, guess what? One day you will be old like me. And then you're going to have operations. That's life. I got news for you. You're all young. You don't understand. When you get old, you get operations. I had cataract surgery here. That's a little thing. I know devotees who have much more serious operations. And then you get older and older, and everyone's looking at you. Oh, he's an old man. You're not cute anymore. Nobody's put me on their lap in the last 68 years and told me how cute. So really you have to be serious about Krishna consciousness. So anyway, so we study Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shikshashtaka, this material world is miserable. And we resonate with verses in the Shikshashtaka. Be honest. Don't say to Krishna, oh Krishna, feeling your separation, I'm considering it. You can chant that verse, but you're not at that level probably. Because you're forgetting Krishna. You're not feeling the separation to be like moment. 12 years more, a yuga cycle. Or, Krishna, you can do anything to me. You can crush me by your embrace. Leave me broken-hearted by not being present before me. Probably you don't think like that. Chant the verse, but understand, you have to be honest with yourself that you're not on that platform. Okay? And then if you chant with bhav, with emotion, with intention, with a sankalpa, then you'll chant attentively, you'll always be happy. How's that? Don't you want to be happy? Okay. And above all, this is the final thing, always serve Srila Prabhupada. Always serve Srila Prabhupada's mission. That's the most important thing. Okay? So, Prabhupada left already. I guess just giving instructions for Pujari. Okay, so now we'll give the name. You ready? What? You better get Prabhupada for this. So what you have to do is you offer dandavats to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. You can do that. And then you offer dandavats to each of the deities. And then you come here. Okay? No. Oh yeah, Kanti. Kanti Bala. Someone should put the Kanti Bala on it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, or you can do it by yourself. Or you can do it during whatever you prefer. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama.
So he should do what I say. You offer dandavats to Srila Prabhupada, pray to Srila Prabhupada for spiritual strength to serve his mission with your whole life. Srila Prabhupada will bless you. Hare Krishna. Yeah, it was here. Say the mantras to Prabhupada while you do it. Out loud so everyone can hear. Okay. Do the deities. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama,
Is he saying the mantra out loud?
Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so now we offer obeisances to my not so humble self. Remember, you're promising to follow these principles and the rounds for your whole life. Minimum. So how much? What are the 4 Ayurveda principles?
No intoxication, no eating, no fish, no energy, no gambling, no physical sex.
Good. And how many rounds do you chant every day?
16.
16 minimum. Try to chant more on the Ekadashi. You can't. I usually, if I'm not engaged, in some activity on Ekadasi, I'll chant 64 rounds. And the interesting thing about chanting 64 rounds, you realize when you do it, it's really the standard. So the Prabhupada has been very kind to us. And I realize that 16 rounds is just a warm-up before the game. Really, because 64 rounds is effort. But anyway, I'm not saying you should do that, but try to chant more on Ekadasi. Ekadasi is very important. So you get the beads with your right hand. And your spiritual name now is Adi Shesh Das. Adi Shesh Das. And of course, Adi Shesh, or Adi Shesha, is the name of Balaram. So I'm just praying to Balaram that you'll have all that spiritual strength to serve Prabhupada's mission and be very strict in Krishna conscience your whole life. And associate with the devotees, especially your good parents and Balaram Prabhu. Okay? Okay. So offer raises. Adi Shesh. Adi Shesh Prabhu ki Jai. Adi Shesh Das Brahmachari. Adi Shesh Das Brahmachari. Okay. Yeah, you put the beads.
Okay, so we'll start this out. Fire. During fire sacrifices, in Srila Prabhupada's time, you like to have a lot of different mantras going on at the same time. Yeah. So if you like to chant japa, that's fine. If somebody wants to chant the Brahma Samhita or from the Bhagavad Gita or anything, it's okay. It's good. It's very good. And I asked Jai Ganesh to could put on a recording of Srila Prabhupada softly chanting Guru Vashnakam. Right. Very nice. Okay, so we'll take 3 drops of water in your right hand. This is the Sakya Sankalpa. Okay. Oh, you say, you repeat. Oh, Tatsa. Shri Govindo. Govindo. Asya. Shubhatitao. Achyuta Gotra. Adi Shesha Das. Shri Krishna. Prityartam. Harinam Diksha. Samskar. Karmaham. Karishyami. Then you let the water go. We can hear, come on. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Guru Vashdeva. Laksha-vritishu Suravira-viparayam Lakshmi Sahasra-Shavasam-Namaseyavanam Govinda-Adi-Purusham Namaham Bhajami Veram Swaram-Paravinda-Daya-Pacham Varavatam Samasitam Buddha-Sundarangam Kandar-Gopodika-Maniya-Vishesha-Shobham Govinda-Adi-Purusham Namaham Bhajami Other people can throw their grains in the fire when we do the swaha. Okay? Every time we do swaha, we offer the grain in the fire like this. Om Tad Vishnu Param Padam Sada Prashanti Suraya Vipraso, Vipangavo, Jagavansa, Samindhati, Vishnuya, Paramam, Param, Om, Bhu, Swaha, Ilam Vishnave, Ilam Namaha, Om, Bhuva, Swaha, Ilam Namaha, Om Swaha, Ilam Narayana, Ilam Namaha, Om Bhuva Swaha, Ilam Anantaya, Ilam Namaha. Now we're going to chant Mangalacharya. Om Ajnana Vimirandasya Jnananjana Lakaya Chakshu Viditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा गदा मह्यं ददाति स्वादान्तिकं स्वाहा वन्दे श्रीगुरु श्रीयुता पदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादा सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च
शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वती इति नामिने स्वाहा श्री वर्षभानवी देवी द्वैताय कृपाब्धये कृष्ण संबंध विज्ञान दायिने भवे नमः स्वाहा माधुर्य उज्ज्वल प्रेमाद्य श्रीरूपानुग अब्दिदा श्रीगौर करुणाशक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते स्वाहा नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये नीलकारिणे सिद्धांत सिद्धांत हरिणे स्वाहा नमो गौर किशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्य फलम्ब सम्बोधे पदाम्बुजाय नमः स्वरूपाय रूपानुग
Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Swaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Swaha Jayatam Surtopango Namamanda Patirgati Vansarvasva Padam Bhojo Radha Padanamohano Swaha Divyan Vrindaranya Alpadrumatha Srimad Nagara Hasanasto Radha Srila Govinda Devo Vishtalivi Sevyamano Smarani Swaha Sriman Rasa Sarambi Nipam Shivata Pata Sita Karshan Venu Vanay Gopi Gopinata Vishuna Swaha Kasta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Krishna Swaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Swaha Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Swaha Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Swaha Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Swaha. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahman Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Brahman Hitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishna Govindaya Namo Namaha Swaha.
Place the banana in the fire so they find
Mantratas, Santratas, Shidram, Desha, Kalata, Vastuta, Sarvam, Karoti, Shidram, Anusankirtana, Tava, Om, Yoshanti, Antariksha Shanti, Vayu Shanti, Teja Shanti, Papa Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Oshadaya Shanti, Loka Shanti, Rama Shanti, Vaishnava Shanti, Shanti Drityastu, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Divine Grace of Prabhupada. Kirtan. And second hand.
Yeah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Gaura Chande Artika Shobha
Just
Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Saramara Sara Madhur 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 Bhaje Madhur
Hare Krishna.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare जय ओम विष्णु पाद परमहंस परिवार ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज गोपाल की जय, आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, इसकान पांडुराचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरी गोवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीपापुर धाम की जय, गंगा देवी जमुना देवी तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Amritato Nrisingha Bhagi Nrisingho Hridaye Nrisingho Nrisinghamadi Sharanam Prapadye Nrisinghamadi Sharanam Prapadye
Birkrishna, thank you very much for coming this evening. We're going to have prasadam upstairs, so please make some volunteers to serve. Volunteers should wash their hands, put gloves. We'll take prasadam there. Again, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Maganda.